may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. Over my past, now 4 weeks at Emmanuel, I've come to understand some things about this community in Emmanuel and about New England. First, Newport is gorgeous in the fall. Of course, Newport was gorgeous in the summer too, but now, with the light hitting us at a little bit of a different angle, in the afternoons particularly, and the leaves with the cooler temperatures at night just starting with the warm reds and the brilliant yellows, it's just glorious. And when I look out my window in the afternoons or even in the mornings and see our children, our Emmanuel Day School children, playing out on the lawn, my heart is just filled with gratitude for this amazing community at Emmanuel. I've also learned that Emmanuel is a wonderful, warm, loving, diverse community. Even if we don't all come to church at the same time or to the same service, we're community even if we don't do all the same things when we get here. Think of the work of the altar guild, the choir, the office volunteers, the lay readers, the intercessors, all of those who organize or participate in special ministries and study groups. In these weeks, as the seasons have changed, our property committee has been just amazing, keeping this building and all of our grounds in shape. Debbie Venancio, Ron and Pam Fleming, Ed Gosling, Dave Monroe, Kevin Venancio, and Ann Sherman. And I know I'm leaving other people who help out. But they've been working their usual magic to hold this place together and to show me things I need to see, to keep this beautiful church building and grounds in their very best condition. And Mother Anita and Steve did that for years. And I am so grateful for everything that all of these wonderful people have done to keep our building together and to hold our lives together in community. We also have full communities at Emmanuel that happen at different times of the week. Thursday, Emmanuel Day School had its opening picnic out on the lawn, and Mr. Christopher, who I learned is a local children's music celebrity, came and led the children all over the lawn in music with drums and guitar, and they all know him and follow him like the Pied Piper. And the whole area out here was just, with that beautiful light again, lit up with the older children and EDS alums doing cartwheels across the lawn and the little ones dancing and singing with Mr. Christopher. And it was more than a fair trade, I thought, when the rains came a little earlier than expected, and we had to close down 20 minutes early, but that beauty of that afternoon, I think it was well worth it. Many of you may be familiar with the Episcopal Church's practice of measuring the size of a congregation and trying to analyze how healthy it is with the idea of average Sunday attendance. How many people come to worship in traditional services on weekdays and on Sundays? My friend Sam Candler, who is the dean of the cathedral, St. Philip's Cathedral in Atlanta, has often talked over the last 10 years or so about a different way of looking at things. Our lives are different now, and communities are changing. And also, this is very true to the history of our church, to the history over millennia of how things worked and how people got together in community. Sam recommends that we talk about and think about not average Sunday attendance at traditional services, but average weekly or number of times of touches. Touches is the word he uses. Because there are affinity groups and ministries and people who use this community different, who participate and interact with us in a different way than sitting next to us in the pews. Average Weekly Touches focuses on all the things that happen here. The Emmanuel Day School, committee meetings, Al-Anon, AA, Soups On, the Harvest Tea, the Pet Blessing, Community concerts and weddings, that's just naming a few of the ways that people interact with this community. And touches might be a more accurate way to really understand how we all live together and how we work together and interact. In past years, I learned from the vestry, Emmanuel has had what it called fireside groups. Some of you may remember that. Fireside groups were small dinner groups who met in each other's homes. And I grew up with that same idea and have experienced it through my life as a very active Episcopal layperson in Atlanta. And we called them foyer groups. And when I mentioned that, everybody said, foyer groups? What's that? And does that mean we meet in the hall? And so I got curious. I thought, what does that mean? So I looked into it, and I was surprised to learn that the idea, first of all, the word foyer comes from the Old French, not modern French, but the Old French word for fireside or hearth. But what it is intended to evoke and has been used to evoke is the warmth of and hospitality of a community. In other words, having people come into your home and to engage around the preparation of food and the enjoyment and fellowship of eating together. And where this word came from and came into modern use in the church, I learned, again, I thought this was interesting, is many of you may remember that during World War II, during the Blitz, Coventry Cathedral in England was absolutely destroyed. And then the provost of the cathedral went out the next day and sifted through the rubble and found in the rubble the roof nails, great big heavy, almost finger big roof nails. You see them sometimes in the old cathedrals in England. But found those roof nails bent from the fire, and he twisted them together into a cross, and he raised them up on that Sunday in the shell of the cathedral. You can still see them there. In the shell of the cathedral with the words, "Father, forgive." And that is how Coventry Cathedral's Society of the Cross of Nails formed. It was a reconciliation ministry, and it still is known as the Society of the Cross of Nails, and there are many communities all over the Global Anglican Communion and other faith groups around the world that have reconciliation remembrances and pray the Cross of Nails on a weekly basis. But anyway, here's getting to the point. Delegate back on point. The point is that this is where the foyer group idea came from. In the wake of that fire and the Blitz and in the pain of war, groups started meeting around Coventry Cathedral to think about what do we need to do to focus on good things. And so they started gathering in small groups in each other's homes for fellowship, and they noticed very quickly that they came to know one another as people, and they had very, very strong bonds formed. And so that is where the whole idea of the foyer groups came from. And now, in our present time, you'll see them in the Episcopal Church all over the country. They're very active in the Church of England. And so I wonder whether we might give that some thought as we go forward and think about whether that ministry, that way of bridging our different communities and bridging our different affinity groups might be helpful in our context, because we have so many different people from, what usually happens is people from different age groups, different ministries, different parts of the church come together in small groups of 6 to 8 people. And there usually is a potluck dinner together at the church at the beginning of the program year, and then you would meet possibly on a monthly basis, often through May. And the groups, so small groups, usually the host will make the main course, and others bring and add the salads and the sides and the appetizers and drinks, and it can be a wonderful way to get to know one another. So we put that out there for discussion. It's a means to develop new friendships and deepen old ones and bridge the different services and ministries within the church and help all of us feel more connected and more knowing. I've had our community on my mind a great deal over the past weeks, and that perspective has affected my view on the gospel today. It's a very particular reading, isn't it? It's another one of those troubling parables in the string of parables we've been looking at. There's a lot of detail. And what I notice about this one is there's a lot of particular detail that I don't think of another place in Scripture that we hear what someone is wearing, right? And the parable contains a lot of detail about how the rich man and Lazarus look than we often see in the gospel. And some of it, I have to say, is genuinely cringeworthy. We read both of the elegance of the rich man's clothing. He's dressed in purple and fine linen. We even know what color he has on. And remember, purple is a symbol of wealth and royalty in the ancient world. It's a very expensive dye, so only a few people had it. Whereas Lazarus is covered with sores and terribly hungry. Even the dogs would come and lick his sores. And remember, Jesus doesn't give us details that aren't important. Why does Jesus give us this gruesome image of Lazarus' sores alongside the rich man's purple and fine linen? Well, of course, there is the economic message in that, and there's a sharing message in that. But there's also a community message. Jesus is giving us these high contrast images, these details, to show us what we miss when we don't really see each other. We don't know each other as neighbors and community members. In my short time here, I have found Emmanuel a warm and welcoming place, a loving, concerned, safe environment filled with mutual concern and neighborliness. And if we look around on Sunday and feel that there are not many people in the pews, we're not seeing those people who are active here all week. There are over 25 families, teachers, parents, siblings, and students who come to Emmanuel at least 5 times a week. 6 if they're participating in the angel choir. Each EDS student arrives and departs with a parent, and sometimes with a sibling, or 2. And when we do the math, that's around 50 people every single weekday, crossing the churchyard twice a day, with a solid population of 25 or so all day long, all active in Christian community here at Emmanuel. And on Tuesday, we have Emmanuel's turn at Soup's On, our soup kitchen where Emmanuel takes one night every month, and first Tuesday of the month is our night. We have Soup's On, and the kitchen will be bustling with people, some of whom come every Sunday to the 8 or 10 o'clock service, and others who absolutely never come to church. But Soup's On is most certainly one of the most important ways that this community worships God. How does our gospel speak to us this week? The rich man, among all of his other problems, didn't really see Lazarus. He never got to know him. How can we see and get to know our neighbors here at Emmanuel? People who go to the other services, the families of Emmanuel Day School. Let's give some thought and some prayer to how God is inviting us into community here at Emmanuel, and how we can accept that invitation with gladness and singleness of heart.